The Open ended, but the whispers followed golf's powerful leaders home. Bryson disputes the penalty. Rory McIlroy questions his character. Scottie Scheffler protects him from the cheating label. This feud is no longer about two shots. A group of 11 players is now being linked to a demand that Brian Rolapp resign, dragging the PGA Tour into chaos after the Open controversy. Their names remain hidden, no letter has surfaced, and nobody close to Rolapp wants to explain where this claim began. That silence is feeding the gossip. Bryson's 66 became a 68, his argument delayed tournament business, and his angry post instantly activated his supporters. Rory then used one brutal word, performative, which made the entire episode feel personal. Scottie complicated everything by defending Bryson's honesty. Hours later, his own free relief ruling left Michael Kim dumbfounded and fans shouting about favoritism. Suddenly, private complaints sounded believable because public trust had already collapsed. Rolapp never controlled these decisions, yet angry players need a target, and powerful executives become convenient when nobody else accepts the blame. Subscribe and tell me whether this sounds like rebellion or calculated gossip. Now let us uncover who benefits from putting Rolapp's job on the line. That trail begins with a problem for the resignation story. The Open is not a PGA Tour tournament, and Brian Rolapp did not supervise the officials at Royal Birkdale. The R&A runs the championship and applies its competition rules. Rolapp leads the PGA Tour, which makes him powerless over the decision that turned Bryson DeChambeau's second-round 66 into a 68. Anyone claiming 11 players confronted Rolapp because of that ruling must explain why they targeted an executive outside the chain of command. No verified list provides that answer. The mystery survives because the anger surrounding the decision was genuine, even though the alleged ultimatum remains unsupported. Bryson created the moment that gave the story its force. His tee shot on the fifth hole entered thick rough, where television footage later became crucial. Officials concluded that his actions had improved the area of his intended swing. Rule 8.1 does not require a player to act with a secret plan to gain an advantage. The condition only needs to be improved through a prohibited action. The R&A therefore added 2 strokes, changing a bogey into a triple bogey. That adjustment moved Bryson from 7 under and solo second to 5 under and tied 5th. A brilliant charge had been cut down after he left the course, which made the punishment feel even harsher to his supporters. That contrast mattered because Bryson had arrived carrying the status of a modern golf celebrity. Reebok had made him the face of its return to performance golf, while Rolex had associated itself with his scientific image for years. His LV golf position also made every dispute feel connected to the wider fight over power, money, and acceptance. Bryson rarely behaves like a man willing to disappear behind an official statement. His identity is built around challenging conventional limits through speed, equipment, calculation, and showmanship. The penalty touched the instinct that made him famous. He treated the ruling as another system to test, while critics viewed his resistance as proof that celebrity had started competing with accountability. His response after the decision became the story's social media turning point. Bryson wrote that he was disappointed, disagreed with the ruling, and felt fired up for the weekend. The language sounded controlled on the screen, but it arrived after extended conversations with officials and uncertainty over whether he would continue. That post did more than update supporters. It activated an audience already convinced that golf's traditional institutions treated Bryson differently. Fans examined camera angles, replayed every step in the rough, and argued over intent. A rules decision had become a loyalty test. Supporters saw a challenger being restrained by an old establishment, while opponents saw a superstar attempting to turn an ordinary penalty into a personal injustice. Rory McIlroy then supplied the phrase that hardened both camps. He said he was not particularly fond of Bryson and described much of his behavior as performative. Rory also objected to the disruption created while the tournament waited for Bryson's decision. about continuing. That reaction carried weight because Rory represents the established champion in this conflict. His career major record, Nike clothing, tailor-made equipment, and Omega partnership give him the authority of a golfer who has lived under constant examination. Rory's core instinct is emotional hunger mixed with blunt honesty. He rarely hides irritation when he believes golf's larger interests are being damaged. Bryson challenged the ruling, but Rory challenged the authenticity of Bryson's entire performance. Their opposition gave the controversy a shape that a technical explanation could never produce. Bryson was the hungry challenger who believed numbers, evidence, and influence could reopen a closed decision. Rory became the defender of a championship that could not allow one player's protest to control its schedule. Neither man needed Brian Rolapp to create that conflict. The tension already contained a hero and villain, although each fan assigned those roles differently. Bryson's audience saw courage in refusing to submit. Rory's supporters saw maturity in protecting the event. The supposed group of 11 players entered this atmosphere as an anonymous chorus, which allowed the rumor to borrow credibility from real disagreement without producing a single accountable voice. Reports that Bryson considered involving Donald Trump added another layer of spectacle. The claim came through media accounts of his discussions with senior R&A figures, but no evidence showed that Trump intervened. R&A Chief Executive Mark Darbon said no call arrived and described the penalty as clear-cut from a rules perspective. That distinction matters. The reported threat belongs in the story as part of the escalating confrontation, but it cannot be presented as a completed attempt to overturn the ruling through presidential pressure. Bryson's camp did not publicly confirm the most sensational version. The absence of confirmation left gossip free to expand, and the political connection made an already polarizing golfer appear larger than the tournament itself. No credible report identifies the 11 players. Rolapp has not acknowledged receiving an ultimatum connected to the Open. Those missing pieces prevent the title's central claim from becoming established fact. They do not erase the leadership anxiety that makes viewers consider it possible. His name represents golf's future, so anger travels toward him when responsibility belongs elsewhere. That is where the difference between accountability and convenience becomes important. Rolapp can be judged for PGA Tour strategy, player relations, schedule design, and the direction of professional golf. He cannot reverse an R&A penalty at the Open. Turning him into the villain of Royal Birkdale gives frustrated fans a familiar face, but it also protects the real decision-makers from focused scrutiny. Mark Darbon publicly stood behind the ruling, and the R&A administered the event. Bryson disputed their judgment. Rory defended the tournament's right to move forward. Scottie Scheffler later defended Bryson's character. Every verified line of conflict leads back to those people. The supposed resignation campaign leads only to unnamed players and an absent document. Bryson's weekend performance also weakened the claim that officials alone destroyed his championship. He stayed in the event and entered Sunday close enough to matter. His final challenge collapsed with a triple bogey on the 11th hole, where his own mistakes ended the momentum that the controversy had generated. He finished tied for 14th, 6 shots behind champion Ryan Fox. The two-stroke penalty clearly damaged his position, but it did not determine every shot that followed. This gradual truth matters because outrage often freezes a tournament at its most controversial moment. Bryson still had opportunities after the ruling. His inability to convert them shifted the human drama from persecution toward frustration, which is much closer to his real major week. Ryan Fox's victory should have closed the championship. Yet another ruling reopened every argument. Scottie Scheffler hit a wild shot left on the 17th hole into an area affected by structures. His ball was not recovered, but officials determined it was virtually certain that the ball had entered the temporary immovable obstruction area. That finding allowed free relief under a different rule from the one applied to Bryson. Scottie took the drop and made birdie. The distinction was real, but the visual contrast was brutal. Bryson had lost 2 strokes after moving through rough. Scottie appeared to escape punishment after sending a shot far away from the intended line. Michael Kim transformed that confusion into a second social media turning point. He wrote that even he was dumbfounded by Scottie's relief. His status as a PGA Tour professional gave the reaction more force than an anonymous complaint. Fans treated his post as expert confirmation that something looked wrong. Clips spread rapidly, and the earlier Bryson footage returned beside Scotty's drop. Two separate rules became one emotional comparison. Viewers did not need an accusation of favoritism because the images supplied their conclusion. This was the point where anger stopped belonging only to Bryson's supporters. The controversy became an argument about whether golf's rulebook creates outcomes that fans can understand or trust. Scotty's position made the moment more complicated. He had already defended Bryson by saying the two-time major champion was definitely not a cheater. Scotty acknowledged that Bryson might have been careless, but he separated carelessness from dishonesty. That was consistent with Scotty's core identity. His image rests on dominance, personal restraint, and respect for the game. He did not attack the R&A to protect a friend, and he did not join Rory's personal criticism. He drew a boundary around Bryson's character. When Scotty later benefited from a ruling that looked generous, his earlier defense became part of the gossip. Fans began treating kindness between competitors as evidence of a protected circle, despite having no proof of coordination. The established champion and hungry challenger now stood beside each other in an unexpected way. Rory had challenged Bryson's motives, while Scotty protected Bryson's integrity. Bryson remained the central disruptor, but Scotty's ruling shifted attention toward institutional consistency. That movement gave the Rolapp rumor new emotional fuel. If viewers believed stars received different treatment, they could also believe players were confronting leadership behind closed doors. The logic was weak, yet the mood was powerful. Public distrust often fills missing evidence with the explanation that feels most satisfying. 11 unnamed players offered scale. A resignation demand offered consequence. Rolapp offered a recognizable target. The combination sounded explosive because each component answered an emotional need, not because documents supported it. The authority question destroys the cleanest version of that narrative. The R&A controls the Open, and its officials handled both disputed decisions. The PGA Tour did not award Scotty's relief. Rolapp did not assess Bryson's penalty. Calling this a PGA Tour controversy blurs the difference between a tour, a major championship, and golf's governing institutions. Many casual viewers use the PGA Tour as shorthand for men's professional golf, which makes the confusion understandable. A publishable script still needs to reveal the distinction. Rolapp's inability to control Royal Birkdale does not make him weak. It means the title has attached a wider leadership crisis to an event governed by another organization. The number 11 presents an equally serious problem. A real player revolt should leave evidence through names, agents, meeting records, direct quotations, or reporting from multiple established outlets. None of those elements currently confirms this demand. General frustration among golfers cannot be converted into 11 specific resignation calls. Michael Kim questioned a ruling, not Rolapp's employment. Rory criticized Bryson, not the PGA Tour chief. Scotty defended Bryson's honesty, not an executive removal campaign. Bryson challenged the R&A's decision, not Rolapp's authority. Combining those reactions can demonstrate division across golf. It cannot honestly prove that the same men formed a group or delivered an ultimatum. This truth reveal does not drain the story of drama. It changes the object of the investigation. The more interesting question concerns why an unsupported claim feels believable after one turbulent championship. Professional golf has spent years teaching fans to expect secret negotiations, sudden defections, enormous contracts, and leadership decisions made away from public view. LIV Golf turned private conversations into historic moves. The PGA Tour responded with structural changes that many players learned about through announcements. Against that background, an anonymous group demanding a resignation does not sound impossible. It sounds familiar. The rumor exploits a trust problem that already exists, which makes Rolapp vulnerable even when the immediate accusation lacks evidence. The final judgment is therefore uncomfortable for both sides. Rolapp has not been shown to face a verified resignation demand from 11 players over the Open. Present evidence does not justify stating that allegation as fact. The anger behind the rumor remains authentic because the championship produced disputed visuals, sharp player criticism, and confusion over different rules. Bryson's penalty supplied the viral spine. Rory turned it personal. Scotty complicated the moral picture. Michael Kim gave the second ruling credibility as a controversy. Rolapp entered only after the frustration expanded from tournament management into general leadership distrust. That sequence reveals who benefits from putting Rolapp's job on the line. Anonymous content creators gain a powerful headline. Angry fans gain a single villain for an institutional problem. Critics of golf's current direction gain the impression of a player uprising. The R&A receives less attention because debate moves toward an executive who did not make its decisions. Bryson supporters can frame his penalty as part of a larger failure rather than one ruling under Rule 8.1. None of those benefits proves coordination. They explain why the claim travels even without names, documentation, or confirmation. The story ends where responsible outrage must begin, with the verified conflict rather than the invented certainty. The open, exposed mistrust between stars, officials, and fans. Bryson's resistance showed why his challenger identity attracts devotion and criticism. Rory's blunt response protected tradition while deepening the personal feud. Scotty's defense preserved Bryson's character before his own relief reignited doubts about consistency. Rolapp remains accountable for the PGA Tour decisions that belong to him, but Royal Birkdale's rulings do not. If 11 players eventually identify themselves and produce a real demand, the judgment can change immediately. Until then, the rebellion is gossip built around genuine chaos. Subscribe, share your verdict, and tell us whether golf's biggest problem is its rule book or the people selling every dispute as a leadership war.